It felt like I was being exploited every day. I've been sending money to my mom for years and years. Even though I've given her $2,000, she still says it's not enough.
Isn't it okay for me to just run away now?
That's what I thought when I bought my new home, but then,
If you want to live in this house, double the money you send me. If not, I'll move in here instead.
am I destined to be exploited by my mom for the rest of my life? No way, I can't allow that to happen. I finally mustered the courage to confront my mom's harmful behavior. My name is Holly. I'm 45 years old and single. There was a time when I longed for marriage, but unfortunately, I never met anyone. I gave up on the idea a long time ago, accepting that it just wasn't meant to be. Now, I'm enjoying my single life. Or at least, that's what I wish I could say, but honestly, it's hard to fully enjoy it. The reason is my mom. She's a bit of a difficult, troublesome parent. Actually, the way she treats me compared to my sister is like night and day. When I think back, I don't remember my mom ever doing anything for me. I don't recall being hugged, patted on the shoulder, or praised. On the other hand, my sister was showered with love and affection. My mom constantly doted on her, hugging her, praising her for everything she did, and even giving her spending money. However, I was the one being exploited by my mom. I never got an allowance, and my Christmas gifts were always taken away from me, as if it was just the natural thing to do. She would say,
I'll return them to gain refunds and save the money for you.
but I know she used it all because I never had a single bank account of my own. I never even got a birthday present, and all the clothes I wore were my sister's hand-me-downs. The cute clothes that suited her didn't look good on me, and I remember feeling embarrassed. My dad didn't care about the family, thinking that as long as he worked and brought home a paycheck, that was enough. Financially, we weren't wealthy, but we weren't poor either. I was always lonely. I even got less food than my sister, and I can't remember ever getting any snacks. As a result, I was a skinny kid, which only made the difference between my sister and me more noticeable. This just made my mom focus on her even more, and my heart was always crying. If it weren't for my kind friends, I might have turned out bitter. My mom just couldn't resist my beautiful sister, especially when compared to my plain looks. Furthermore, even though my mom was a stay-at-home wife, she hated housework. The house was always a mess, and when I started tidying up a bit, before I knew it, I was being told to clean the entire house. I was only in elementary school at that time. It wasn't just cleaning either. Gradually, I was made to do all the housework. Thanks to that, I can handle typical household chores without any trouble as an adult, but I'm not about to thank my mom for that. No matter how hard I cleaned, did laundry, or cooked, she never praised or thanked me. She even made me, a little kid, do the heavy grocery shopping. Meanwhile, she'd be sitting in the living room, watching TV, eating snacks. How could I ever feel grateful to someone like that? She never came to school events for me, but she'd participated for my sister and then left. When meeting with my teacher at school, I overheard her saying,
I'm embarrassed by how poorly she's doing.
By the time I got to middle school, I'd stopped expecting anything from my mom. I'd come home from school and quietly do the housework every day. I didn't talk to her. I'd just watch her and my sister have fun conversations. By high school, I wanted to buy things for myself, so I started working part-time. Then, believe it or not, more than half of my paycheck was taken by my mom saying that's for rent. Of course, I resisted and complained. But she wielded her usual weapon.
Are you going to defy your parent? Who do you think you have to thank for being able to live? Who will be in trouble if you're kicked out of this house? You wouldn't even be able to go to high school if it weren't for me, and you don't even have a little gratitude? If you're even slightly grateful, then of course you should give money to your parent.
Although my dad was the breadwinner and she did little housework, she behaved as if it were all her doing. My sister would just laugh while watching me get yelled at and bossed around by my mom. Even as kids, she probably felt superior, knowing she was the only one being loved by our parents. My dad was completely indifferent to the family. He'd come home from work and retreat to his room without saying a word. When I was little, I didn't think anything was strange about our family. Kids live in such a small world that I just assumed this was what normal parents were like. By the time I got to high school, I realized how wrong it all was, and when my mom started taking my earnings, I made up my mind to leave as soon as I could. When I finally got a job and moved out, I was so relieved. Finally, the days of exploitation are over. After that, I hardly ever went back home. Maybe once every few years. My parents never called me, and I didn't reach out to them either. I hoped we would just drift apart. However, when I turned 30, my dad suddenly passed away. He was only in his early 60s, still young, so I was pretty shocked. There was no time to grieve. With his absence, it meant that my mom would now be living by herself. I started to worry, and unfortunately, my worries came true. She started telling me to move in and take care of her. All the memories from my childhood came flooding back, and I dreaded the thought of being exploited again. I could see it clearly. She'd make me do all the housework, and between that and my job, I'd reach my breaking point in no time. Therefore, I avoided contact with her as much as possible, dodging her requests. Then I got the news that my sister was going to move in with her instead, and I was relieved. It wasn't my sister's whole family, though. It was just her and her 2 kids, a total of 3. Her husband wasn't there. They'd divorced due to irreconcilable differences. Tension had existed between them even before my dad passed away, and not long after his death, they decided to get a divorce. My sister saw it as a chance to move back home. I didn't mind that at all. In fact, I was relieved that the idea of me moving in was off the table. My mom would obviously prefer living with my sister she adored and her grandkids over living with me. I thought everything had finally settled down, and we could all go back to our peaceful lives, but it wasn't that simple. Shortly after my sister and her children returned to live with my mom called and suggested I do something to express my appreciation for her. My sister had only moved back because she got divorced, not because my mom was lonely and needed company. Yet, in my mom's perception, my sister had returned home to look after her. Therefore, I needed to do my part as well. Since I wasn't exactly rolling in money, I didn't want to be exploited again, so I kept dodging my mom's requests. That's when the angry calls and messages started flooding in. To make matters worse, she even called my workplace. She contacted the payroll department and demanded they send her half of my salary. Realizing that she might actually show up and cause a scene at my office, I reluctantly started sending her $500 a month. I thought that would finally bring some peace, but I was wrong. I still didn't fully understand her. There was no way she'd be satisfied with that. It didn't take long for her to demand more money. First, it was $1,000 more, then another $1,000, and so on. She repeatedly insisted.
Your sister and her children are here, which means we need additional funds.
And continuously pressed for higher amounts. When I asked if my sister couldn't work, she went ballistic.
How could you even think of making your sister, who's busy raising her kids, go to work? You're such a cold-hearted sister.
Why is it that my sister gets a free pass while I get yelled at? My mom hasn't changed at all since the old days. Or maybe it's just foolish to expect anything different. I believed I had relinquished hope, yet it appears I was still yearning for my mom's love and appreciation. I felt frustrated and angry at the unfairness. I started to think that sending money was my best defense against her constant attacks. As long as I sent the money, she wouldn't bother me as much, right? I disliked it, but since it didn't significantly impact my life, I raised the amount to $1,000 per month. Could that lead to peace? I continued to underestimate her. She was cunning. She kept coming up with new reasons.
We need money for your sister's kids to start school. Our grocery bills are going up as they grow. Utilities aren't cheap.
Therefore, the $1,000 in support became $1,100, then $1,200. 15 years after I started sending money at 30, the amount had ballooned to $2,000 a month. Sure, living alone wasn't expensive, and my salary had increased over the years. However, this amount was really tough to handle. The company that I work for was struggling in this economy, so I couldn't expect any more raises either. Despite the monthly support, my mom continued to request additional spending money, citing a difficult month. She said,
Your sister and her kids consume all the living expenses. I want to have some fun too.
I thought it would be more logical for my sister to find a job, but my mom simply wouldn't consider it. As the children get older, they shouldn't need as much care. When I suggested that my sister could work, my mom retorted sharply.
Your sister's life is already so difficult. How can you not feel guilty for even proposing that she should work?
How overprotective can my mom be? You might wonder why I didn't just talk to my sister at this point. Of course, I did. I told her that it's time her to start working. However, my mom ended up yelling at me.
Are you some kind of monster?
My sister knows from childhood experience. If she's in trouble, my mom will come to the rescue. And she knows that I'm unable to stand up to my mom. She probably thinks it's okay to take advantage of me, just like my mom does. It's infuriating, but after being coddled by our mom, it's no wonder my sister turned out this way. In a way, she is also a victim of our mom. However, I didn't feel sorry for her. She's old enough to know better, yet she chooses to stick with the status quo. I can't help but worry that she's going to become just like our mom and end up exploiting her own kids. That's my biggest concern. My sister's kids are in high school and middle school. I wonder what they think when they see their mom living with their grandma. I hope they're turning out okay. What if, one day, even my sister's kids start taking advantage of me? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't let that happen. If it did, my future would be bleak. That's when I finally started thinking clearly. Was I really okay with spending the rest of my life being exploited by them? I had no intention of sacrificing any more of my life for them. I used to send the money just to avoid the hassle, but recently, I've started to see things more clearly.
Maybe. It's okay if I finally run away.
I have been financially supporting my mom for 15 years, which I believe has more than compensated for the expenses of raising me until I became employed. As for my sister, she hasn't repaid a thing. We've never helped each other out as sisters, and I've never felt loved by her. In fact, just like my mom, she looks down on me. With these thoughts running through my mind, I looked at my bank account. Despite sending most of my income to my mom, I'd managed to scrape together some savings. Looking at the balance, I made a decision to start a new life. I immediately started browsing real estate websites. After that, I went to see my mom.
What? You're moving?
I hadn't been home in a while, and I told her I was moving. She gave me a sour look and glared at me with those piercing eyes, making me instinctively look away. No matter how old I get, I'm still afraid of her glares. Even though I'd mustered up the courage to start a new life, one look from her made me shrink back. My sister, uninterested in what I had to say, kept laughing at the TV. The living room was a mess, just like always. As soon as I walked through the front door, I remembered my mom telling me to
Clean up.
It was clear she still saw me as nothing more than a housemaid. I forced myself to ignore her words and started talking about my plans to move. I was nervous, not knowing how she would react. Not wanting to look at her face, I spoke with my gaze slightly lowered.
What about your job?
There's a branch of my current company near where I'm moving. Once the transfer is approved, I'll move. If it's not, I might start a new job over there.
Really? Where's this new place?
Well, it's a bit old, but I splurged on it. I'd rather not say exactly where.
After all, I was moving to get away from her. However, she pressed on.
So, where is it?
She glared at me again. I showed her the real estate flyer. It was a great find after checking out many properties. Something I could just afford with my savings. It had a picture of an old but large house.
What? Why on earth did you buy such a big place?
Well, I thought it over and
Are you an idiot? That's way too big for someone living alone. You've always been so dumb. How embarrassing.
As expected, her reaction was awful.
If you've got that much money, you should increase your monthly support.
My body tensed up at the mention of money. This was the most important part of the conversation that day. More important than the move, something that required even more courage. I gathered my resolve and told her.
about that. I can't send you money anymore.
What?
This was the real reason I came that day. Honestly, I was terrified. As my mom aged and became frailer, the deeply rooted belief that parents are paramount remained with me, instilled since my early years. Still, the thought that I might have to keep sending money to my sister after my mom passed made me realize it was time to be brave. With all the courage I could muster, I said,
I used up my entire savings to buy the house. I have a small loan to pay off, so I can't send you any more money.
What? Are you kidding me, you ungrateful brat?
I can't do it anymore. If things are tough, you two need to start working.
It was clear that if I stayed at home any longer, I'd just get yelled at endlessly. I could already see the future. My mom and sister would gang up on me until I finally gave in. Thus, I decided to do the only thing I could at that moment, run away. I stood up quickly and headed for the front door.
Wait a minute. You think you can just…
I'm done. Goodbye.
I screamed.
Forever.
In my heart as I rushed out of the house. Behind me, my mom kept shouting.
You ungrateful brat.
In the end, she never once thanked me. She just kept demanding more money, as if it was her right. To her, I was nothing more than an ATM machine. Therefore, this was for the best. Even if she called me ungrateful, I knew I was right. I kept telling myself that as I ran. My previous apartment was close to my parents' house, but my new home is much farther away. It's in a place where my mom can't easily visit. She wouldn't be able to show up unexpectedly just to demand money.
Finally, I'm free.
I whispered to myself with a lighter heart, determined to live for myself from now on. A month later, my mom called me out of the blue. Seeing Mom on the caller ID filled me with dread, but I knew that if I ignored it, things would only get worse. My instincts about her were never wrong. With a sigh, I answered the phone.
Hey there, Holly. How's it going?
she said, eerily cheerful.
Mom? What's going on?
When I asked what she wanted, she replied,
This place is amazing.
This place? Are you on vacation or something?
My mom and sister had often used the money I sent to go on trips. It had always made me feel sad. So, I assumed it was another one of her vacation boasts, but this time it seemed different.
Oh, by the way, guess where we are right now?
How would I know that? I wanted to snap back, but I still couldn't bring myself to be firm with her, so I simply replied.
I have no idea.
She responded with an ominous laugh.
Well, guess what? We're at your new place.
What?
Remember that the flyer you showed me when you bought the house? I used it to figure out where it was. So, guess what? We've moved in.
Moved in.
Well, technically, we just came to check it out. But it looks like we can start living here right away. You've already got all the furniture and appliances set up, and the fridge is fully stocked. You should have told us you were all moved in.
Wait, no,
And everything's brand new and top of the line, so we don't even need to bring anything from our old place. So, we're moving in here now.
What?
While I was panicking, I could hear my mom and sister excitedly chatting on the other end of the line.
Oh my gosh, is this a new massage chair? It fits perfectly in this big house.
Holly, were you planning on eating this fancy steak all by yourself? We'll help you out with that.
Look at this huge TV, and the sound system is amazing.
Check out this gorgeous leather sofa. Oops, I spilled ice cream on it.
As I listened, I felt all the blood drain from my face.
Hey, Mom, how did you get into the house?
How? The door was unlocked, so we just let ourselves in.
You just let yourselves in.
More importantly, Holly, where are you right now? Leaving with the door unlocked, how careless. We'll watch the house for you. Or rather, if you want to come back in, there's a condition.
What?
I was already panicking, but my mom, who I could imagine grinning on the other end of the phone, continued.
If you want back into this house, you need to double the money you send me.
What? But I already told you, I'm not sending any more money.
Do you really think that's going to fly? I'll lock all the doors and make sure you can't get in. If you want back in, double the money. Oh, and since we'll be living in this big mansion together now, it's not a monthly support anymore, it's spending money. $4,000 a month.
There's no way I can give you that kind of money.
Fine then. I'll just take this house for myself. You can go back to your old rundown place.
Wait, Mom, are you really planning to live in my house? What about your grandkids?
My mom mentioned that she and my sister were at the new location. When I asked about my sister's kids, I was told that both of them had left home. When I asked my sister what happened, I heard her irritated voice from beside my mom.
They both decided they didn't want to live with us anymore. They went to their dad's place. All I did was tell them to get a job and help out with the bills.
Hearing this made my head spin. In short, my sister had planned to exploit her kids just like our mom. No wonder they left. At least now, I felt relieved. Now my nephews can have a normal life. I'd always thought they needed to get away from my mom and sister, and now that worry was gone. With that weight lifted, I finally started to think clearly again. After taking a deep breath, I spoke.
Mom, enough is enough. I'm done sending you money. I won't send another cent.
If you say that, I won't let you back in the house.
That's fine. I have no intention of living with you too. Don't ever contact me again.
I said it. I finally said it. I cut ties with my mom. I should have done this sooner. Moving far away wasn't enough. I needed to say it out loud, make it final. It had taken me a long time to muster this courage, but I'd finally done it. No more hesitation. I repeated.
I'm cutting ties with you.
My mom was clearly panicking on the other end of the line. Sensing this new determination in my voice,
Oh, is that so? Fine. Do whatever you want. But I'm serious. I'm moving into this house.
that was her last attempt at retaliation. But it had no effect on me. I calmly replied,
Hey, Mom. Listen carefully.
What? I'm calm.
The house I bought? I had it torn down.
So, I'll just take. Wait, what?
I could hear the confusion in her voice as she tried to understand what I was saying.
Yeah, I had the old house torn down. It was falling apart anyway.
What? But this house is beautiful with all new furniture and appliances.
So, Mom, whose house are you in?
What do you mean, whose?
Did you check the name on the mail?
Mail?
I heard my sister's voice shout from the background, clearly listening in on the conversation.
Mom! The names on these letters are not Holly's.
What? Holly, when did you get married?
Calm down. That's not my house.
I responded calmly to my panicked mom. She fell silent on the other end of the line. I picked up the real estate flyer that was nearby, the one I got from the realtor. I remembered asking a lot of questions when I toured the area. Looking at it, it all made sense now.
Hey, Mom, you said you used the flyer I gave you to find the place, right?
Yeah, the location is right, and the house matches the picture on the flyer.
You do realize there were multiple properties on that flyer, right?
What?
That whole area is filled with large estates for sale. The house in the picture was just one of them. The house you're in is probably one of the nicer ones that was sold as is, with everything already in place. It was way out of my price range, so it sold quickly, and the realtor told me new owners had moved in. It's quite a success story, really.
What?
The house I bought is a bit farther away. It was so old it couldn't even be lived in, so I bought it for next to nothing with plans to tear it down. I've already cleared the lot and plan to build a small house there, and I'll rent out the extra land as a garage.
What?
I'll keep my job, but the garage business will be my side hustle.
But the door was unlocked.
Maybe the owner forgot to lock it or just stepped out for a moment. Either way, it wasn't smart, especially since you've now trespassed.
Trespassed?
Well, yeah. It's not your house, after all.
Is that really true?
Why don't you find out soon enough?
Huh?
My mom's confusion was interrupted by the sudden noise of commotion on her end of the line. I heard the sound of several footsteps and then a voice shouting,
Intruders.
Oh no. Wait! No, you've got it wrong. We're just.
my sister screamed. Then there were more angry voices. It sounded like the actual owners had returned home.
Hey, Holly, this is your fault. Fix this.
How?
How? I don't know, just.
Even if I wanted to help, I was still living in my old apartment near my mom's place. The new property was just an empty lot, so I hadn't moved in yet. Meanwhile, my mom and sister were over 3 hours away. How exactly was I supposed to fix this? It seemed like my mom realized this too, and she went quiet. Not that I'd help even if I were nearby, though. As I thought that to myself, I heard a loud thud. It sounded like my mom had dropped her phone. I could still hear them screaming.
This is a mistake, I swear.
Then another voice shouted,
Police! Freeze!
Wow, it was like something out of a TV show. I kind of wished I could see it for myself, but instead, I quietly hung up the phone. Later, I heard from a small news article in the local paper about a mother and daughter who had trespassed in a mansion. By the way, I'm staying out of it. Apparently, the police contacted me, asking me to come down as a guarantor or something. However, I told them I had cut ties with my mom, and I refused to get involved. In the end, my sister's ex-husband went to help out, but after that, he cut ties with her too. Breaking into someone's home is a crime, so she wasn't allowed to see her kids anymore. Maybe if her kids wanted to see her, they could, but apparently, they don't want anything to do with her. What did she do to them while they were living together? Maybe she made them do all the housework, just like our mom used to make me do. The thought made me feel guilty. I called her ex-husband to apologize, but he was just as apologetic, saying,
I'm sorry for what my idiot ex-wife did.
We both ended up laughing over the phone. At least my nephews are doing well now and living happy lives. That's a relief. However, the real problem is my mom and sister. There was a lot of drama, but it ended in a settlement. If they had broken in to steal something, the settlement amount would have been much higher, but since it was just for trespassing, it was around $2,000. I thought that wasn't much of a blow to my mom, but apparently, it was. That $2,000 was all the money she had left. I was wondering what happened to my dad's inheritance and the $2,000 a month I sent her. It turned out she had spent it all. It makes sense, though. She was constantly eating out at fancy restaurants, going on trips, getting spa treatments, and buying designer bags. Just thinking about how she wanted me to double my support payments to fund all that is terrifying. I'm so glad I decided to move and cut ties. If I hadn't made that decision, I'd still be getting exploited by her. After my mom was released and the settlement was paid, she moved back to the old family home. As usual, she started nagging me to send money again. So, I blocked her number and moved to a temporary apartment until my new house was finished. If I didn't do that, they'd probably show up at my door again. My temporary apartment is near the new place. My transfer request at work was approved, so I've officially started my life in a new city. The new workplace is full of great people, and I'm relieved that I'll be able to enjoy my job as much as I always have. After the trespassing incident, my mom and my sister haven't shown up at my new place. In fact, it seems like they can't. It makes sense, given how much of a scene they caused during the break-in, with plenty of witnesses. Even though my new house is far from where that happened, I doubt they have the courage to come here. Thanks to that, I'm enjoying peaceful days. As for my mom and my sister, they ended up selling the old family home. A relative, who my mom tried to borrow money from, told me this. Of course, they refused, but it seems my mom has been begging everyone for money, which has made her quite unpopular. She must really be out of cash. Living on just her Social Security must be tough. Especially with my sister still not working. Yet they continue their reckless spending, and now they're drowning in debt. They didn't get much money from selling the old house, and after paying off their debts, they had nothing left. Now, they've moved into a cheap, run-down apartment and spend their days constantly arguing. My mom yells at my sister to get a job and support her. My sister yells back that it's my mom's fault for spoiling her. Now, no one visits them anymore. Well, they've lived it up for long enough. They can deal with the consequences. I'm done with them. It's incredibly hard to break free from the fear that's been ingrained in you since childhood, especially when it comes to your own parents. It takes a lot of courage. But once you take that first step, even just half a step, your life can change dramatically. A small bit of courage can lead to a big transformation. As I looked at the progress being made on my new home, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about the bright future ahead.